Good evening. Today is November 16th, 2015, and welcome back to Veterans Voices, a monthly talk show focusing on veterans issues. Tonight, we bring you Women in the Military, a special episode to commemorate and celebrate women's roles in the armed forces. I'm your host, Melissa Margain, and I'm joined by my co-host, Linsay Rousseau. Linsay is a graduate of UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism and previously served as a public affairs sergeant and combat photographer for the U.S. Army's 1st Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division. Thank you so much for your service, Linsay.
Thanks, Melissa. Our viewers may remember Melissa from past Veterans Voices episodes as both a guest and a co-host. She's an Army combat veteran with 10 years of active service. Thank you for your service, Melissa.
Absolutely. Before
introducing our guests, we want to remind our viewers that we'll be taking your calls, emails, and live chats anytime during the show. Our phone number is 925-313-1170, and our email address appears below. If you'd prefer to ask questions anonymously, you can do so through our live chat link located on the top left of our homepage or via Messenger on our Facebook page.
We're now joined by Dr. Felisa Gaffney and Sergeant First Class Chastity Hutton. Dr. Gaffney is an Air Force veteran who now counsels women at the Concord Vet Center. Sergeant First Class Hutton is assigned to the Army's 834th Transportation Battalion and is active in Alpha Gamma Xi military sorority. Thank you both so much for joining us and your dedicated service.
Thank you, and thank you both for your service.
So I just wanted to kind of quickly just go over again kind of what you do, your roles in the military, and what you do in helping women at the Vet Center. We'll start with Sergeant First Class Hutton.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm Sergeant First Class Hutton, and I am the Operations NCO over at Military Ocean Terminal Concord. And my role, I'm a senior non-commissioned officer, and I have a plethora of roles. I'm the Suicide Prevention Non-Commissioned Officer.
Okay.
I'm also the Master Resiliency Non-Commissioned Officer, and most importantly, I am our battalion's victim advocate, our SHARP representative.
Great. And so for those of you who don't know, locally here at the Concord Ocean Terminal is still an active base. So thank you again for that service.
Great. Dr. Gaffney, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at the Concord Vet Center with regards to women's issues?
So I help women and other veterans who have experienced trauma in service and MST, PTSD,
Right.
a variety of other diagnoses, and readjustment.
Okay. And for those who don't know, MST, military sexual trauma, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So what are some of the things that you've noticed that are kind of unique to women in the work that you do?
I think the transition is tough.
Right.
Transitioning from a predominantly male institution and having to go out and find work, not enough transition services on the outside, on the inside to help you prepare to get out. So although you thought you did all the right things, such as going to school and attending the seminars, there's still not enough. You have to relearn how to dress, how to integrate and talk to people.
Absolutely.
Instead of barking orders at them, because as a senior NCO, I'm sure you understand that the best way to get things done is to help them become more motivated. And so when we speak to each other, we speak in terms that are succinct, and we get right to the point, and it comes off as brash or rude, and trying to speak in a way that everybody understands and get rid of the acronyms and how do we actually dress. We all wore the same uniform, had standards for hair. So those are challenges. Those are basic challenges that we experience on our transitions.
So when you talk about transition, it's not just, I'm coming from the armed forces into civilian sector. It could be a transition from a deployment to a remote location. So what if you, Sergeant First Class Hutton, with you still being active duty, what was transition like for you? You have been deployed several times to several different remote locations. And so what have you kind of gone through in that transition, and how have they differed each time?
All my transitions have been extremely different. Starting even from the beginning in 2003 up into my most recent and returning in 2014. The hardest part for me being a single parent in the military is reconnecting and transitioning with my children, making those family ties. And I am a master resiliency trainer, and I teach these lifelong skills to help the soldiers transition. And just like Dr. Gaffney said, while we're in the uniform, we're so used to the camaraderie of being around each other in the support system. And coming back my last time, I realized that outside of the military, even though I had my direct family, I didn't have a support system. I returned in April of 2014, and I immediately PCS within 90 days, and then I came directly across the U.S. here to California and realized I had nothing.
Is that something that you see often with the women that are transitioning and that, you know, require services?
So that's part of what I see, but the other part is being trained in the military to do a specific job and being very good at that and not being able to find suitable employment when you leave, and having children, and just going through the interview process. They tell you wear like blue, black, and brown suits or something
even
like
the
that.
basics of just dressing for
Simply. Most of us wore, you know, some kind of BDUs or whatever uniform you wear,
Combat uniform
but it's
every day.
a combat everyday utility uniform, and you wear combat boots. So now, not only are you having a hard time conveying to someone what you're trying to say or what your experiences are, you're in a skirt, you're uncomfortable, you got on these heels that you may or may not be able to walk in, you know? And so those are the types of things that promote anxiety. Just not knowing the uncertainty, so it makes it more difficult. And then it's compounded by trauma or MST. So.
Now, you had mentioned you work on issues of MST and chastity. You mentioned that you're a victim advocate as well. These are two issues that are not unique to women, but predominantly affect female service members. What are some of the, and for both of you, what are some of the things that you deal with, both active duty and then you on the veteran side of things? Maybe we'll start with you, Chastity.
Some of the things that I've seen throughout I've been a victim advocate for a long time before we were called victim advocates. I've been doing this since 2006, and what I see is a lot of trauma that's happened prior to that now starts to affect the female warrior within their day-to-day scope of their duties and their jobs. And then add on top of that the combat stress, add on top of that, you know, the single parenthood, add on top of that all the other factors that you can factor in on a daily life basis with these women in uniform. And a lot of things start to come to the surface. So what I can offer, what I do offer, is not only do I offer my own personal experience as a lending ear, but, you know, I direct these warfighters to services. You know, sometimes women just need to know that they're out there, and you know, we're not going to be penalized.
And so then, Dr. Gaffney, what are some of the services that you have available?
So once they come to me, they've already gone through the process that Sergeant Hutton was talking about. What I see is that they were able, most of them were able to compartmentalize that and hold on to those feelings. And when they separate, they start having more time on their hands. So they start thinking, and the trauma from childhood, the trauma from all of this is compounded with all these other things as well.
So and that's great that you say that. And so, you know, we have these discussions to bring up maybe some things that aren't out there in the forefront. And so we have a caller on the line and kind of want to get some feedback from our viewers. So Gloria, can you hear me? Okay, so we lost the call, so we'll get her back. But thank you again, you know, for your input. Absolutely.
Another thing that's come up, you mentioned you are a single parent, and then also you've talked a lot about transitioning and parenthood. What are some issues that come up with women in dealing with children coming through transitioning? How does that play out in the work that you do?
Well, I've realized that every time I deploy, my children deploy with me. And every time I come back, my children reintegrate with me. So having deployed and PCS'd all in the same year, it can be a little daunting on the children, but our children are resilient, and I actually look to my children for strength to get me through on a daily basis. And I even tell my soldiers, you have to believe, that what you're doing is beneficial for your family, or else, it's for naught.
Right. And Dr. Gaffney, what are some of the transitional services available, either for families or for single mothers?
So my hope is right now, because I have a few on my caseload who have children, my hope is to start a group that will support women veterans with their children and things that they encounter, such as daycare, and just to have a safe space where they can communicate together and get through those stages of parenting and transition together.
And that's vital, you know, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Myself, you know, I deployed as a single mother, so I definitely know how important that is with the transition. So we're going to jump back to our caller. And Gloria, are you with us?
I am.
Good, great.
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And so you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I did want to add on to what was being talked about just now regarding the challenges women are facing transitioning back.
Sure.
You had just mentioned the compartmentalizing, and I think that's huge because I don't think that the women I'm speaking to don't even realize that they need to go through the process of dealing with their issues because their compartmentalization is so good.
Right.
And when they get out, they have to deal with that.
Okay. Now, are you a veteran, Gloria?
I am a veteran, yes.
Thank you so much for your service.
Well, thank you.
And again, that was a great comment. And again, thank you again for, you know, tuning into the conversation and kind of picking that, you know, that out. I do have a question for you, if you don't mind. Is that something that you maybe had some issues with transitioning back after your service?
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% rated 100% service-connected disabled, so I don't technically work in the 9 to 5 sense.
Right.
But after several years of trying to find my way, I finally went back to school using the GI Bill, and I got a degree in directing. And now I'm recording the stories of women who have served.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of working with you on a couple projects, and you really are using film, and we're going to talk later about alternative therapies, as a way to tell these stories of women, but also help yourself go through the healing process.
Oh, absolutely. It has changed my life. In fact, my psychiatrist and I regularly check in and make sure I'm still following the mission, because it took the mission of recording these stories to get myself back on track.
Great. And so before you go, Gloria, what advice would you give to a viewer who's out there and maybe hesitant about seeking help or maybe going through a difficult transition and how to take that first step?
What I've realized is that what we lose when we get out of the military is our people. And we feel very lost without our people. The beauty is there are so many amazing organizations and people out there just ready to help you, and they know what they're doing, and they're ready to do it. So really, just about taking that first step will catch you on the other side.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, thank you again so much for calling in, Gloria.
Gloria brought up a couple really interesting issues about using the GI Bill, about finding support networks. Now, we've talked about, you know, kind of resources through the Concord Vet Center and so forth, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the sorority that you are a part of?
Yes, I am an active member of Alpha Gamma Xi Sorority Incorporated, and it is a military sorority. It is a sorority based off of all women that are active duty, retired, or a veteran of status. And I tell you, it's a sisterhood that I have never experienced before in my life. It was the sisterhood that I've always longed for, and it's the sisterhood that we have within the military. So when you are away, it is a place where we can go and we can transition together. And the one common denominator that we all have is that we have all served. And there's nothing better than to be able to lean on your sister and stand among each other and understand truly, you know, through each other's hearts, you know, what you've gone through.
Okay, great. So we have another caller, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Kenya, are you with us? Caller, can you hear me?
We're working on.
Okay, we're working it. No worries. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
give us a
hang
call
up.
Kenya. Definitely. Popular this evening. It's amazing.
Sorry, you were saying?
Yes, Alpha Gamma Xi, like I said, we strive to be the #1 premier sorority of all military sororities, and there are a few out there. But the one thing that I have found within Alpha Gamma Xi is that we all active duty, retired, and it does not matter your age or when you're retired or if you're medically retired, or, you know, and I get so passionate when I talk about my military sorority because these are truly my sisters. We are not all in the same state. We don't see each other every day, but I can tell you one thing, there's no matter what I do, I can pick up the phone, or I can get on Facebook, or I can send out a message, and no matter what I'm going through, I'm gonna have a sister on the other end of the line that's going to support me.
Okay, we're gonna go back and try our caller again. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, this is Alicia Guffey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Do you have a question for our guest this evening?
Oh, no, I actually called in because I'm friends with one of the gentlemen that works at the station, and we met at the Writers Guild.
Even better.
Actually, Zach, and so he was telling me about the great program tonight, and I just wanted to call in and say that I'm glad that such an amazing program is going on for women veterans today and for all of our veterans, and that it's online and on TV. I think that's awesome.
Well, great. Is there any story or anything you wanted to share with us?
Well, just a short program that might be of benefit to both women veterans and veterans in general is a program called American Corporate Partners that I'm in the process of doing now, but it will pair any veteran up with someone from the corporate sector to help you through the transition process for an entire year. And they will either pair you up with someone in your field or someone in the region that you're working at.
Oh, that's great. So hopefully we'll be able to put your information up on our website after the show so people can get more of that. Right now, we want to thank Dr. Gaffney and Chastity, Sergeant First Class Hutton, for being here and talking with us. We recently caught up with social worker Kira Cerna, an Air Force veteran who now counsels transitioning veterans at the Concord Vet Center. Let's take a look at excerpts from that interview, and we'll return in a moment.
I'm Kira Cerna. I'm a readjustment counselor at the Concord Vet Center. I'm an Air Force OIF veteran, licensed master social worker. I do individual counseling and conduct groups at the Vet Center. Military women from history have paved the way for current women in the military by breaking gender stereotypes, by showing that women can be courageous, they can be brave, we can fulfill many roles, and that's what women from the past have contributed to the current women who serve today. Women feel, they have to fill a lot of roles in the military, actually. Women are now doing just about any, most of the jobs in the military are open to women these days. So they are, they're not just the medics anymore. You also see them out as mechanics or in combat. And plus, they also have to balance that with sometimes being a mother, being a wife, and fulfilling, a wide variety of roles. And they're able to balance everything, most women do a very good job of that. At the Vet Center, we can work with all vets to help point them in the right directions as far as resources. We do have, counselors who specialize in military sexual trauma, PTSD. We work with depression, anxiety. We also have groups. One of the groups that I do is the Women Veterans Peer Support Group, and that's more of a peer group rather than a therapy group, because it is so important for women to connect with each other when they come back or when they're transitioning out of the military. And the purpose of that group is to just allow them to connect, to support each other. We do a lot of recreational activities. We did archery, equine assisted therapy, we've done sailing, and that really helps them to rebuild their confidence again, to get them outside of the house so they're not isolating, and to learn to build trust again, because if there has been trauma in the past, that does impair their ability to trust other people. These services are important to women because it can be hard to transition from military to civilian life. Sometimes, we get out of the military and we may have a little bit of a hard time gaining our footing. And it's especially helpful to, come to a vet center and be able to meet with other veterans, especially women veterans who have been through the transition themselves, who can help you to navigate the services, to put you in touch with the right resources, to have someone compassionate to talk to, who you can relate to.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. If you're just tuning in, this is Women in the Military, a show dedicated entirely to female veterans. We're broadcasting live from CCC TV studio and streaming this episode on our website. We'll be taking your calls, emails, and live chats anytime during the show. Our phone number is 925-313-1170, and our email appears below. We invite you to ask questions anonymously through our live chat link located on the top left corner of our homepage. And we know that we do have several callers on the line right now. We promise we will get to you just after we talk to these guests. We're now joined by Senior Airman Millie Bass. Senior Airman Bass is assigned to the 60th Aerial Port Squadron out of Travis Air Force Base. Millie is married to a medically retired Army sergeant. With her is Army veteran Candy Jones, a member of the Veterans of Foreign War Post 1351 in Martinez. And of course, Sergeant First Class Hutton stayed with us to join the discussion. Welcome to the show, Millie and Candy, and thank you ladies for your service.
Thank you both for your service.
So as Lindy mentioned, we do have calls, but of course we want to get to know our guest. So Millie, if you can, again, tell us just a little bit more about you and what you do.
I am in air transportation. We load, unload aircrafts. We also deal with hazmat and what goes on the aircraft, and hopefully nothing shifts too much and causes the plane to crash. But
okay, great. And Candy, what was your MOS when you served?
My MOS was 76 Victor. I was a supply specialist.
Okay.
Made sure that the troops get whatever they need in order to do their job.
Great. So, of course, this episode is Women in the Military, and we've touched on several topics such as transition and just kind of working in, a typically male-dominated field. So, what has been your transition, Millie? I know that you've deployed to Afghanistan, and again, thank you so much for that. So what has been, kind of your take on transitioning back from a remote location, and then we'll go to Candy and kind of ask what your transition's been like.
it was different. I was used to having someone there all the time, I guess,
Sure.
that camaraderie. And when I came back, I had my family, but I didn't have my family, my other family.
Okay.
So it was kind of hard. It was very different. And it was just, I'm not going to lie, it was nice to be home.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Was there anything that made that transition easier, or were there any sort of, what sort of helped you kind of ground yourself again back stateside?
Before I deployed, my husband and I were kind of separated, and then when I came home, I kind of grew up a bit and gained a different perspective on life, and
Sure.
I started talking to him again, and he kind of helped me out with me coming home and dealing with some issues, and
Right.
it was great. He was great.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that had to be hard, and reintegration into any capacity is difficult. So I'm glad that you guys were able to work through that, and that you were able to come on top. So Candy, how was your transition?
My transition was kind of like 2-4. Because of my military experience, I was taught to focus and make sure you do the job. So
Right.
I made sure that I did my job as a civilian, but the military still had an effect on me, so I wasn't as social as a civilian as I was in the military.
Right.
But I think it's important, as the young ladies and the veterans spoke earlier, to connect when you get out the service with any possible avenue that the VA offers in order to do a smoother transition into the civilian life. Because sometimes we experience things in the service that halt us from being productive civilians.
Right.
So it's important to take advantage of all services that the VA offer. The VA has very good programs for women and men, but the women has a harder time connecting.
Right. And I think it is, something
Yeah.
to bring up. Our transitions are our transitions. And I think it's definitely a unique situation when you talk about reintegrating women back into the civilian sector. We're going to jump back to Alicia, who joined us during segment 1 on our call. And caller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us again. So if you'd like to just go ahead and continue with your previous comment and thought, that'd be wonderful.
Oh yeah, no problem. So I was fortunate enough to actually learn about your show and get connected through a fellow veteran and just doing one of the many programs that are out there for veterans. And so that's kind of something I just wanted to talk about, is just there's so many opportunities and people in different organizations trying to reach out to veterans, and they've just been a huge key component for me as far as going through the reintegration process and kind of finding your, grounding in the civilian world when you leave behind all the structure and, build-in friends and stability. And I actually started with the post 9/11 and did a VA work study in their voc rehab and met lots of amazing vocational specialists and social workers.
Great.
And that really was like the start of me just getting more connected and doing different types of transitioning events. Like American Corporate Partners is a really great one that any veteran can sign up for, and they're an amazing organization. And then there's many others out there, like the Writers Guild, Deloitte Consulting. There was Veterans on Wall Street this past week. So there's just so many things if you just Google veterans and opportunities that really hopefully other veterans are taking advantage of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing up some resources that I think we weren't even aware of, and it just goes to show that we're just barely scratching the surface. I mean, I think every day we're learning of new resources that are available to all veterans, to women veterans, and thank you for bringing up some ones that perhaps we didn't know about before. I think, do we have a couple other callers on the line as well?
We do. So we want to thank you again, Alicia, for joining us in both segments. We did appreciate your feedback and, again, your resources.
Yes.
And we'll go ahead and take the next caller. Caller, can you hear me? Okay.
Okay, great. So Candy, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you are doing through the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars?
The Veteran of Foreign Wars has allowed me as an individual to pay respect to other veterans by giving honor or participating in their departure. We do honor guard detail, which is a very rewarding service that we give to all our veterans. Post 1351 in Martinez also have American Legion, which also participate. And just being there for any veterans that might feel that they might want to connect with someone. It doesn't matter if you served overseas or if you did not. Veterans are there at the hall, including myself, to just help other veterans who just willing to come out and want to touch base, have a cup of coffees, talk to someone, have lunch, and these things are available.
It's that idea of camaraderie. And,
Yes.
and
Staying
sisterhood,
together.
like you were mentioning earlier.
Exactly.
And it's very important, to stay connected. There's an unspoken bond with any service member. Once you find out that you've served, you kind of know.
There it is.
So, so we're going to jump to another caller. Caller, can you hear me? Caller? Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Caller, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this Kenya?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Kenya. And do you have a question for our guest?
Yes. Well, I was just going to make a comment because I'm calling in from Minority Women Veterans Organization.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
And basically, I was just going to let all the female veterans that are calling in tonight, just to let them know about Minority Women Veterans Organization and the different programs that we offer that can actually help them.
That's wonderful, and sure, feel free to share some of the resources. If you can speak up just a little bit for us. It's a little hard for us to hear you here in the studio. Okay. Kenya, do we still have you here?
Okay, so she again brought up another resource that we will add to our list of resources available on our website.
Yes, it's very faint.
Oh, she's back. Okay. All right, so she brought up minority women veterans resources as well. Why don't we go back to you, Candy, with your sorority, I'm sorry, chastity, Candy, chastity, too many C's. Yeah, she brought up the issue of minority women veterans. Now, is that something that is specific to any of the work that you've done?
Actually, no. I have heard of this group, and that is a great group that you can go to on Facebook and, you know, put questions, comments, or things that I've seen simply on Facebook that you can put in there for minority women's veterans. But Alpha Gamma Xi, that is, we do have a website. You can go to www.alphagammaxi.org and you can look us up. We also have Instagram pages. You can search Alpha Gamma Xi on Instagram and Facebook. And you know, we're here, women supporting the community and supporting the veteran community specifically.
Great. And I've actually heard great things about both organizations. I know with Minority Women Veterans, they have several different campaigns to promote just kind of self-worth and self-love and glamming forward campaigns. And with Alpha Gamma Xi, they also have several different initiatives to include mentorship programs for youth, different things like that. They do swan talks for women who have gone through some sort of trauma during military service. And so there are, I mean, definitely different avenues out there for women, and that's why it's so important to stay connected, to keep that resource loop going. One thing that I did want to point out regarding Alpha Gamma Xi is that they also offer membership to spouses of those who have lost their spouse. So women who have been granted veteran status through the loss. So I think that's also important to make sure that they continue to feel supported with those different types of situations.
Absolutely.
And kind of going back to this issue of transitioning, Millie, you had mentioned earlier talking about how your deployment allowed you to kind of grow up a little bit and, you know, reconnect when you got back home. What are some kind of, I don't know, life lessons or things that you learned during your transition that perhaps might help other women veterans or, you know, veterans in general?
Life's too short.
That's short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Yes, it is.
So I guess I'll go back to Millie. Again, with you and Chastity, you guys are still active duty. So again, thank you for your continued service to this great country. And so how have you, whether it be from deployment or just on your everyday service, how have you dealt with the stress that comes with the job and the uniform? And you know, you were married to someone who previously served. Do you think it changes the relationship when you're dual military or when you're married just in general and you're serving?
No, not for me, I guess, no.
Okay. My experiences have been slightly different. Yes, I have, I've been married twice, both to dual active duty service members, and it was a struggle. Even, I know with my last marriage, every time I went out, he was home with the kids. Every time he went out, I was home with the kids. So maybe about a period of about 2.5 to 3 years, we were both only home together about 90 days at a time. So that is stressful to any relationship.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're going to jump back to the phone lines. Lydia, caller, are you there?
I sure am.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lydia.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Lydia Davey. I'm a Marine veteran. I served in the Marine Corps for 8 years before transitioning out in 2010.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? We're getting some feedback. Can you turn the TV down? I know it's a great show that you're tuning into.
You can turn it back up once you
Right, but we'd like to hear you just a little bit better here in the studio. Okay, so you have a question for us?
Right now?
Yes. So did you have a question or a story you wanted to share?
Well, yeah, I just, you know, I guess I just think it's so incredible what women veterans have been able to do. I look at the success. When I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, I started my own business, and one of the great programs that I've been a part of is VWISE, which is Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship.
Oh, wow.
And I guess I just wanted to comment on, you know, we hear these stories of MST, you know, military sexual assault, and we hear these stories in the media about the kind of trauma that veterans in general experience, and of course specifically women veterans. And I think obviously that's an important part of that's an important conversation to have. But I think what's often missing are the types of stories that you've been telling, and the types of things that we've heard, which are the successes of women veterans as well, and the strengths of women veterans. And it's been after I left the Marine Corps, completed school, I kind of looked around at the opportunities that were available to me and felt that I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't put this kind of range of skills and abilities that I'd developed as a Marine to good use. And so I started my own PR firm in 2012, and I've been doing that now for 3 years. And it's been such an adventure. And so I guess I just wanted to comment on like the strength and success of women veterans and celebrate that.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. I mean, so many times we see women veterans or women service members in the news for negative incidents. And obviously military sexual trauma is a very serious issue that affects women and also men. But I'm so glad you brought up the positives that we bring to the table, you know, what we've learned from our service, from our deployments, from our continued services, and you know how it makes us stronger people, stronger women, stronger parents because of it.
Well, yes, absolutely. So thank you so much. And again, continue to tune in, and we'd love to hear from you again. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your time and experience with us tonight. Recently, we had a flag raising ceremony for the new flagpole installed here at CCTV and the Veterans Service Office building in Martinez. Candy, our guest here, took part in that ceremony as a part of the rifle detail. And here are some highlights from that ceremony.
We are gathered here for an important, patriotic, and solemn purpose: to witness the dedication of the flagpole here at 10 Douglas Drive in Martinez. And so the flagpole itself is in honor. It's not a memorial, but it's in honor of the fallen, of the service members and the veterans.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices and our special Women in the Military episode. Again, we invite you to call in. We've had some fantastic calls so far. Email or send us a chat with questions or to share your own personal experiences. We are now joined by Dr. Nancy Brown Connolly and Nicole Randall. Dr. Connolly is the Women Veterans Program Manager for the VA's Northern California healthcare system, and Nicole had 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps and is now a clinical psychology doctoral trainee with the VA medical system.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much.
Absolutely.
Great. So, Dr. Connolly, you have a really big job. You know, I know there's so much that you deal with, but what are some of the things as, you know, the head of the women's program for Northern California that...
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons I was so excited about speaking tonight about women veterans is we want to get the word out about some of our programs. And it is a large job, in part because of the number of people involved. But in addition, we cover 44,000 square miles.
Wow.
So we go from the Oregon border all the way down past Sacramento and then over here to the Bay Area. And just to give women an idea of the clinical medical resources that we have, we've got 9 sites. We have a lovely clinic in Reading, wonderful people. We have a tremendous group of people that work in women's health, medical directors, nurses, health techs. And we work with all of the departments. My role is to talk to everybody, and which is good because I like to talk. And so we have a program and a campaign we're running this year to try to bring our women in who have not had a mammogram in the past 2 and sometimes 3 years. So we would like to get that word out over the course of this year and have them come to either Mather near Sacramento or McClellan, or out to Martinez, here in Martinez, and up in the Reading area, to come in and get a screening mammogram to give themselves peace of mind and their families peace of mind.
Sure.
98% of the breast cancers discovered early are curable. Let's get it over with. Let's find out that you're safe and move on, because the rate in women veterans is slightly higher. Now, we also work with social services, we work with mental health. We have a terrific social work group that reaches out to the VSOs, and specifically we have a wonderful group that's been going into the rural areas under a rural health grant that unfortunately was not refunded this year, doing an awful lot with many, many programs and resources. So we want you to be physically healthy. We've got a terrific pregnancy program, maternity program, and a maternity care coordinator. Her name is Heather Abel, and she's nationally certified, does a terrific job. We've also started a genetics program, a telegenetics program this year, that's now available to the men and women. So if you're thinking of continuing your family now or having a family once you've left the military, a lot of women want to normalize their life, they get married, they want to have children. We provide that benefit in the community. So we don't deliver the babies, which is a shame, but we don't. And the community gets that privilege. And so our coordinator manages that entire area and does a terrific job. But if you want to know about conception and any genetic issues, we have a genetics program that's gone in this year as well.
That's definitely an impressive network of services considering your coverage area. And Nicole, just really quick, talk about your work with veterans.
Well, as a veteran myself, I experienced the VA first person as my primary medical provider after I left the active duty Marine Corps. And now as a clinical psychology doctoral trainee, I sort of see it from the other side as a provider in training. And I think what a lot of female veterans experience that we sort of touched on earlier in the program is that sense of social isolation. And so being in the mental health field, I found that one way to sort of address the social isolation was to research it and then provide something that was would help facilitate a sustainable sense of community for female veterans. So what we did was we started a drop-in twice monthly psychoeducational integrative medical and mental health series. And so what it is it's a series of mini-series that are low commitment. You don't have to have an intake to join, and you don't have to have any form of screening. You're simply eligible for VA services, and you can drop in and enjoy an educational class within a socially supportive envilement with other female veterans.
And that's got to be, probably a popular program.
It's going well.
It's going to be.
We're in the pilot phase this year, and it's going really well at Martinez VA.
Great. We are joined by another caller. That's wonderful that we're experiencing so many viewers this evening and great participation. So we're going to go to Elaine from Richmond. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, I think.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You covered after the fact. Maybe I should turn my TV down like you said.
Sure, you want to give that a try? And then sure, if you have a comment or story you'd like to share, we're ready.
I think my voice is going before what I said.
Did you have a question?
I'm a VA certifying official from SoftTech, a computer training school in Richmond, which Richmond does not have a lot of resources for veterans at all, not even up to Vallejo area. What we're trying to do is incorporate a nonprofit, Employment and Training Connections. We have status from the state as a nonprofit, and it's waiting for 501c3 status. However, I have had a post-secondary school for more than 16 years that's licensed by the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary, and a lot of my help is going towards these veterans that the ladies are identifying with PTSD issues, severe PTSD issues, to the point where they can't even stay focused in many situations. I've had 2 veterans that were bombed. One is a Purple Heart, and God, we just thank them for all their services and everything that they do for us. And I want to help them more into letting them know about their benefits, specifically the post 9/11 GI and Montgomery benefit that's available to them that gives them 100% paid tuition, up to $1,000 in book stipend, and a more than $3,100 stipend a month that they can get. This benefit should be used within a 15-year period of discharge. Many veterans that I've talked to in homeless shelters in Berkeley and the like does not know this information.
Right.
Many of them has come to SoftTech just to get their benefit, to have something for food, for something to help them. A veteran should not be homeless.
Absolutely.
A veteran should always have something available to them at all times, and this is what we're trying to project here with all you ladies on the panels, even the ones in Concord. I certainly want to get my information out to them so that when we do set up this nonprofit, we want their feedback and assistance in helping us with setting something like up in this area. Veterans in this area from El Cerrito on up in the
Thank you so much, Elaine.
And we'll definitely, we'll definitely get your information
and share that, you know, with our viewers.
And you know what? This is a good problem to have. Too many services, but obviously the issue with that being is how do we get the information? How do we connect these services? One thing, Dr. Connolly, you had mentioned before is what are some of the things that you still want to see happen? You know, she was mentioning the frustration of people not being aware of their benefits. What are some of the things you would still like to see happen?
Well, I think that is an overriding problem for the entire system.
Right.
And some of the women who come out who do have PTSD, obviously they're addressing issues. They don't have the energy to seek out support necessarily. And they also don't have the energy to pull things together in a way that will keep them afloat. So we have a very high population of homeless women. That has gone up like 140%.
It is a staggering
in the past.
number.
It's a staggering number. I now have about 10 women who are in hotels or just about homeless who are pregnant. And more resources, I think, need to be directed to women's health at the federal level so that we have the resources we need on the ground. And what we do need in Northern California, although we have transitional housing and all of that, voucher systems, wonderful homeless program with very dedicated people, it's not enough to meet the needs specifically that we have for our women. That's a separate issue, and women with children is an even bigger issue. So I'd like to see funding directed to women's health for that situation, and also for any new construction, to make sure there is a separate waiting area for the women, so that the women who really have a lot of difficulty can come into the clinic and can cope without being put in a crowded waiting room with men. So those would be, I think, two, to put the resources as well with the staffing for women's care. You know, we do need more comprehensive primary care physicians and staff, and we would like to have them now because the need is now.
The need is now.
Although we realize the need goes before the, you know, the resources. But it's time for those resources, and it has been time. So we have 12%, more than 12%, 12.5% of our population are women overall in the Northern California system. And nationally, they're saying that women will be 15% by 2035. Well, this is 2015, and we're at 12.5%. So we need some help.
Right. So again, thank you for your insight. We're going to jump right back to the call, and then Nicole, I'm going to ask you kind of some things that you've noticed. So we're going to see if Kenya is back on the line with us. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you again for joining us. Okay, so we have you back, Kenya. You can definitely continue sharing the resources or any comments or stories you have for us.
Yes, I just wanted to let you guys know, and all the viewers that are tuning in know that Minority Women Veterans Organization, we're a small organization, but we try very hard to connect women veterans with jobs. So if there are women veterans out there that are looking for jobs, do feel free to contact us. Our website is Minority Women Veterans Organization, or minoritywomenveterans.org. And you can also reach us by email at minoritywomenveterans@gmail.com. And we help all veterans. So even though our organization is Minority Women Veterans Organization, we help all women veterans.
Great.
We want them to contact us. We have great partnerships with companies like Johnson & Johnson and Verizon. So if they're looking for jobs, we can definitely help them. And also, before I forget, I also want to say a special thank you to Melissa and Chastity for all of their work and dedication they have done to, support our nonprofit. We really appreciate it. And thank you once again for letting us call in this evening and letting all the women veterans out there know that we definitely help them. And I just have a quick question for Dr. Brown. If she can quickly answer, are there any support groups? Do you know of any support groups that are out there for women veterans who may suffer from military sexual trauma or PTSD?
Yeah, I think Dr. Conley and Nicole can probably both speak to that.
The answer is yes, there are. And they take place at different times in different locations. So Nicole, you probably have a better handle on the schedule than I do.
Some of the specifics maybe for this area. I don't know what town you're calling from, but we're here in Martinez, and the local clinic is the Martinez VA Outpatient Clinic, and we have an excellent military sexual trauma treatment coordinator, Dr. Catherine Novotny, and she offers special military sexual trauma treatment groups for exclusively women as well as exclusively men. And we also have the group that I was mentioning earlier, the Women Veterans Health Series, which happens twice monthly, is a very casual drop-in women-only group. And that might be something that you can use as a stepping stone to really sort of come in and meet other female veterans in a non-commitment style format, and learn what some of the services are available to you in this area.
And I know, several of the clinics, the San Francisco VA, their mental health clinic has groups. I know also at Martinez there's a women's group that meets. There's also a women's Nidra yoga group that, again, the non-committal, you come in, you don't have to say who you are, you just drop in.
And we should mention the Vet Center as well. They also have women's support groups there.
They do.
It's a wonderful way to sort of network, communicate.
Thank you so much, Kenya. I hope that they answered your questions, and definitely stay tuned for more information. Again, Nicole, you mentioned that this was local contacts, Dr. Novotny. So we are here in the Bay Area for those of you who are not in Contra Costa County. So definitely contact your local vet centers, your veteran service offices to get any kind of resources or connections if it's something you seek, and find local information in your area.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think the National Women Veterans Call number can get any veteran anywhere in the country, even if she's going from one location to the next, in touch with what the resources are where she's going. So please call that. It's 855-VA-WOMEN. It's a great number to remember.
That's perfectly fantastic.
Great number.
And you had mentioned with the Women's Veteran Resources, there is also a Women Veterans Rape Crisis line as well, or is that something else? Do you remember? Maybe it was something we were talking about earlier.
I think that was something different.
There's the Veterans Crisis
There's
line.
the Veterans
Crisis
within
line.
that,
and I believe that you can call that and then be directed to a specialist for women's services.
Great.
Fantastic.
Well, we have another caller.
Yay.
That's great. So we'll go to Cynthia. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, you can. First of all, I just want to say thank all of you women for your service. And this is an awesome program that you have. You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and I wanted to ask a question about women when they transition and housing. If they're not given any direction once they're discharged, and as the doctor said, a lot of times they just don't have the energy, what would be a good way to get that information to them about how to find housing for them and their children once they transition?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the place to start is to first, get yourself into the VA And then we have social work services available. So you can call any of the locations. There's going to be a social worker at every location. There's more than one. There's whole social work departments. And there's a special group of social workers here at Martinez, and they work with the veterans that are currently coming out of the different theaters.
Okay.
And so they can get you in touch with the right person for whatever you're doing, where you need help, and they can direct you.
Great, great. Now, Cynthia, are you a veteran or are you currently serving? Cynthia?
Well, obviously she, is calling because she's interested in finding more about these resources, either for herself or people that she knows. And I guess that's another issue that comes up with the veteran community in general is, how do we get this information out to a larger audience and, make it easier for people to transition, and find out that these resources are available to people out there. And yeah.
Right. Well, I think we need to go outside the VA and outside the VSOs. The people who are in the veteran service organizations or the VSOs are very aware of what services there are, local services as well. And I think we need to get into the communities, absolutely get into the communities, because there are women there that don't consider themselves a veteran if they didn't see combat.
Right.
We have older women that need help. We have younger women that need help, and they may not have gotten to the point yet where they admit that they need help.
Right.
And so we want to just, get the information out there to the public through other types of communication.
And there's an ever-changing system. What resources are available now may not have been available, with our older generation women veterans. So again, it's very important to keep that network of services and that communication open. And thank you both so much for your input.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both.
So we want to thank you for joining us again, Nicole and Dr. Connolly. We talked about a lot of issues tonight, so let's take a few minutes to highlight some of the resources available to female veterans. The Department of Veteran Affairs has a website dedicated to women's resources and benefits. The Center for Women Veterans can be found at va.gov/womenvet. CalVet Women's Veterans Division provides advocacy information and support to all women veterans and their families in California. Swords to Plowshares has a comprehensive list of links for women veterans. Go to their website and click on the link Resources for Women Veterans. Women's Veteran Connect is a nonprofit that aims to connect, inform, and support women veterans and their communities. Visit womenveteransconnect.org.
And now, as we're gearing up for the holidays, there are many wonderful veterans events going on throughout the country, but here are just a few local ones that might be of interest to you. Remember, you can always visit our website for a calendar of veterans events and resources going on throughout the Bay Area. The Women Veterans Alliance of the Greater Sacramento area will be having a networking event for women veterans on November 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. Email meliss@smartnetstrategies.com for more information. About Face is a free painting workshop offered to all veterans, and no previous art experience is necessary, which is good because I have none. Register at ac5.org or call 925-646-2278. This is a great opportunity to try something new, so bring your friends and sign up today. Veterans will gather for the Mount Diablo beacon lighting ceremony on December 7th to commemorate Pearl Harbor Day. For more information or to participate, contact Save Mount Diablo at 925-947-3535. And the Brentwood VFW will be sponsoring a Christmas pack-out for troops on December 8th at 4 p.m. So feel free to bring your donations. Contact Steve Todd for more information at 415-722-0923.
Thank you so much. Great resources. If you've missed any parts of this show or would like to rewatch it, check our website archive. You can also tune in to CCTV on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays to watch reruns of tonight's episode. Check your local cable provider for rebroadcast times. We want to thank our guests and our viewers. This was a dynamic discussion, and as always, we appreciate all of your contributions. This is Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, wishing you all a good evening. Thank you for serving.